Hello again, everybody. It's another lovely day in Oklahoma. Can't ask for a better day in December, being 2 days before Christmas, and it's 65 out. Again, we're working on the 1944 Model A, and I wanted to give you some tips about taking it apart and what we're going to do next. I took the battery out and of course cleaned it up and put it on charge. I have a 12-volt system, which simply means I put a 12-volt battery in it. Ha! I did put some new wire in it, and I have a 12-volt alternator. It's a one-wire alternator, so it works very well. However, you have to spin it up to about 1100 RPM or so before it starts showing on the gauge. And I don't have an ammeter anymore. Now I have a voltmeter. That looks like spaghetti, and it pretty much is, but I have an on-off switch with a key. My lights work. I have a rear light there as well. Couple of things I wanted to do. The switches, it's funny about Chinese parts, because you get what you pay for, and the switch doesn't operate. I've taken it apart twice and it still doesn't work. It's just a bad manufacturer. It just doesn't work right. You got to fiddle with it in order to make the lights work. So I got to change that, and I wanted to clean up my battery posts some. This is a 6-volt starter, but you can operate on 12 volts. It just turns it a little faster, safely. So it's not like you have to change anything around, because this was a negative or a positive ground system at one time, and 6-volt, and you can just turn everything around and put the correct bulbs in them. You have to put 12-volt bulbs in it. Of course, there's only one, but you can pretty much do whatever you want to now. Because I've got a 12-volt system, I could put a stereo on this if I wanted to. Whatever. Okay, I wanted to show you a couple of things about the steering shaft that goes through here, and it's over there in the corner if you can see it. And I've taken it out. In order to take the steering wheel, the nut off the steering wheel, I used a pipe wrench and a big breaker, and then that square piece of pipe on it. And essentially, yeah, I marred up the shaft a little bit with a pipe wrench, just marginally. But the whole thing is I didn't put any stress on this gear, and if you break that gear, I don't know how easy it would be to get it. Additionally, there is a gasket there, and it kind of sets the thrust on that, sort of, I believe, because there's a bearing inside that. So there's a gasket there, and that gasket needs to be the correct gasket. So I'm hoping that's in my gasket set. Probably not. Probably going to have to make another one, measure that, look at it, and make sure everything's right with the steering and it's not bound. There's another gasket I want to tell you about, and it's on your PTO fan shaft, or PTO fan shaft. It's on your fan shaft coming off of your governor housing. And there's a gasket in between here and here, and it sets the gear in there. Now, in order to get this fan shaft off, of course it unbolts here, but what I'll have to do is I'll have to take my radiator loose and move it forward, and of course that involves undoing this hose and pushing forward. Yeah, it's quite a convoluted scheme in order to do this, but also the exhaust pipe has to come off in order to push that forward. I've had this whole tractor apart and put it back together once before, so the nuts and bolts aren't completely froze up. Things like the exhaust manifold bolts I've replaced, and the intake bolts as far as the water intake bolts. Another thing I want to go over is timing, and I'll show you that in a little bit. You have a governor housing here. Take that off, and there's a gear and it coincides with the cam gear, and there's timing marks on those cam gears, and I'm not sure where the timing mark is, but I'm going to line everything up and see where it is in relation to the flywheel, because I'm sure there's a mark on the flywheel somewhere in relation to the body. I'm not quite sure. I don't have a book on this, but how hard can it be? You know, it's not like I'm opening it up and it's some kind of nuclear drive or some kind of Star Wars, Star Trek hyperdrive or something inside. You know, it's pretty archaic as far as how the design is. I guess I'm lucky this thing has overhead valves. So, anyways, what I'm dealing with. Anyways, we'll get into that farther, and as soon as I get more apart. Last night I took, what did I take off? Oh, I wanted to get my fan shaft off. That's what I did. Essentially, I undid my generator, or my alternator, and I want to come around here and let you see this bracket that I made. I just made it out of some angle, and I cut some notches in it and bent it. Kind of my own Rube Goldberg design, but it works. And when you put a deal on there, it pulls it up. You know, when you put the belt on, you can pull it up and down. Also, this pulley is different. I changed this pulley. I got a smaller pulley, so it spins it faster, and it wouldn't come online until I did that, but it did afterwards. Also, when I took my wires out of my magneto, I marked the top one. It's a good idea to mark things when you get done. Oh, I wanted to go in this also. Mark, especially wiring, exactly how things go. And when you have nuts and bolts, don't just throw all your nuts and bolts in a big box. You should put them in bags. I have got these cheesy little gift bags, and this one says battery tray components, and the other ones say, you know, things like, you know, front 10, that kind of thing. If you label everything, and then it's easy. When you take your air cleaner off, oh, that's what I took off. When you take your air cleaner off, make sure you drain your oil out of your bath in the bottom. Also, I want to tell you that in my bath there was some water in the bottom, and it all turned it to kind of a white color. Well, when I got this tractor originally, the bath, oops, disconnected my battery. The bottom of the oil bath air cleaner had a hole in it, would rusted smooth through because it had water in it. These are notorious for getting water in the bottom of whatever. The bottom of your transmission sump, the bottom of your oil sump, the bottom of your air cleaner. Condensation, really. You got to check that all the time. Okay, more on this later.